most business comes from people you know. In Paris, I took one of my young colleagues. We managed to do triple the networking that I would have done on my own.
What's your thoughts on gambling becoming regulated come 2027?
Gambling is already regulated and operational in the UAE. Emiratis have always shown a very, very practical sense of things. I see that potentially there could be 5 or 6 land-based casinos here.
Dubai is becoming this mega tech hub of the world.
While I believe that crypto is very innovative and very good for society, at the end of the day, holding forever might not be also the correct way of doing things. Do your own research.
Hello and welcome to Bet Talks, powered to you by 0x Processing. I'm Rick Godds and I'm joined by another guest. He is the head of Fintech, blockchain and gaming for WH Partners, Mr. Joseph Borge. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you, Rick.
Brilliant. Welcome to Bet Talks.
Thank you for having me.
No, brilliant. Thanks for coming down. We've been engaged for a little while now. I said I'd bring you on the show to get some insights on gaming and WH Partners itself. How's things in Dubai going?
Oh, very interesting times, of course. So, of course, Fintech is big here and blockchain. So, ultimately, we see a lot of companies that want to set up their business here or open branches here sometimes. And then we also see a lot of individuals that want to trade their own crypto and so on. And there are also ecosystems here that are very interesting for them. So, and then you have technology companies that base themselves here. So we're seeing a lot. But obviously, the big news is that as of recently, and now it's not so recent anymore, it's over a year, there's a gambling authority here.
Absolutely.
And a few licenses have been issued already, particularly B2B ones. And at the end of the day, that is also a very interesting, actually, probably at this stage in Dubai, this is the most interesting thing, because to have a gambling license in the Middle East is something quite rare. And we're seeing a lot of interest on that.
Okay, fantastic. So just sort of going back to WH Partners, we'll come to the sort of gaming side, Dubai. But WH Partners, originally obviously based from Malta, the home of the MGA license, the home of what very, very impact in the gaming world. And now obviously WH Partners are branching out to obviously Dubai. Dubai is becoming this mega tech hub of the world. So tell me how it all started, obviously, with yourself. You've been there since pretty much the early days. How big's the team and sort of how did it all sort of start?
So, yes, originally I was at the MGA. I was Chief Regulatory Officer at the Malta Gaming Authority, and then I moved to WH. We were 13 at the time. In 2013, I believe, I moved to WH. And now we grew to over 100 people. I think we're about 120 people if you take into account all the offices. So right now we have Malta, Rome, Bucharest in Romania, as well as Dubai, of course.
Okay.
And we have also a very small presence in Poland and in the Czech Republic.
Impressive. So it's grown over the last 13 years, 12, 13 years. It's scaled on a vast scale. And that's mainly doing company incorporations, setting up and licensing for mainly gambling companies.
We do much more than that.
Okay.
Obviously, in Malta in particular, we offer all services. We also have a big litigation team now that has won some very interesting cases as well, especially in the gambling space.
Okay.
But we have also a very, very strong tax team, a very strong corporate M&As team. So it is, I would call it an all-service law firm, of course, which is normal nowadays. You have the boutique law firms and you have the all-service law firms, and we're one of the all-service law firms.
Fantastic. So obviously you've been around, especially the gambling scene for over a decade. Based in Malta. I was based in Malta for 5 years. Malta is the home of Sigma.
And in those 5 years, learned good Maltese.
Yes. People do say that. I have a very good Maltese accent. I spent a lot of my mid-20s to late 20s there. It's a big part of my life. Malta always will be. And obviously still back every year, part of the Sigma World Tour. Now, just before we sort of touch on the Dubai stuff, I want to look at your thoughts, obviously, as a Maltese resident, as a Maltese lawyer, and obviously well involved with licensing throughout the world. Tell me about, is the MGA license still as strong as it was, where there are obviously other options available?
I like to distinguish the Maltese jurisdiction and the MGA license. Definitely, the Maltese jurisdiction is still the central jurisdiction for gambling.
Why?
So you still have all the big players there. They are constantly increasing their number of employees there. If you want to get things done, you have to either fly to London or to Malta when you're meeting a gambling operator. So at the end of the day, it is still the main hub, together with London, of course. But let's say for the European continent, it's the main hub. And at the end of the day, there's a whole ecosystem around the gambling industry that in Malta, you'll find anything you need. When it comes to the MGA license, of course, over the years, it has lost the power it had, in the sense that in the past, you would use the Maltese license to operate pretty much all over Europe. And as time went by, every European country started regulating and coming up with its own national authorization regime. And yes, definitely it has lost a lot of its use, although we still see a lot of operators that still want a Malta license. Particularly when it comes to B2B, I believe that every B2B that exists has a Maltese license, or at least a Maltese recognition notice.
Sure.
So definitely it's not something that has disappeared or has lost completely its importance, but it has changed a lot. It has changed over the years.
And would that have something to do with the carousel and also the Anjouan licenses coming into play?
Not really. There was always the distinction between having a Malta, a Jib, and an Isle of Man license compared to having a Curaçao license at the time and the Kanawaki license at the time. Today, we have, apart from Curaçao and Kanawaki, we have Anjouan that is newer, smaller, and more agile, of course, than the other two. So definitely it's attracting a lot of attention. And we also have some interesting concepts coming out of Tobique. So Tobique has some specificities that are very interesting and allow operators to be more flexible. So definitely they are very innovative jurisdictions that cater for a particular type of client, of course. So again, I believe there's space for everyone in the business world, and particularly in gaming. I believe there is space even for newer jurisdictions. I know of new jurisdictions that are coming up. Some of them quite official, some of them are still quite confidential, but there's going to be others. And these others will all have a share in the distribution of licenses, but also an important role in the growth of the gaming industry.
For sure, for sure. So obviously you've been around the gaming sector. I mean, here at Bet Talks, we discuss everything from gaming/gambling, crypto, blockchain, AI, Web3, everything emerging tech that's happening mainly within the UAE. What's your thoughts on gambling becoming regulated come 2027 in the UAE?
I'll correct you. Gambling is already regulated and operational in the UAE. So earlier this year, the National Lottery last year, the National Lottery license was granted. And I believe it was October or December, they started with the first draws. So there's a national lottery already happening online, fully regulated by the GCGRA. A lot of draws have taken place since then. I believe they have a draw every week or two every week, if I'm not mistaken. And it's becoming very popular.
Yeah.
So it is already regulated. Added to that, a number of licenses have been granted. The first one was for the Wynn Integrated Resort Casino.
So that would be the land base, yes.
Which is going to be in Ras Al Khaimah. It's already being built. I've seen some aerial views recently on social media, and it's pretty much advanced.
Yeah. They started to put the glass on the front now, I've seen.
Come December 2026, these guys will be almost ready to go live. They already have the license, so that is obviously a very interesting and important step. And the number of B2Bs that will be supplying Wynn have either started the process to obtain the license or have already obtained the license.
Okay.
So there's Novomatic, Aristocrat. There's a bunch of software providers that have already got a license from the GCGRA to supply Wynn.
Okay. And that would be the software for the land base, correct?
Yeah, but the B2B license is not limited to that. The B2B license in the UAE is quite open. Anyone can apply for it. You don't need to have in your business plan the idea of supplying a land-based casino. You can have the concept of supplying an online gaming operator. There will be online gaming operators in the UAE. Or you can also supply offshore within certain limits, of course, but there's going to be a framework. There is a framework that allows B2Bs to even supply outside of the UAE.
Wow. So you're basically telling me that it is possible for B2B and B2C to get regulated UAE licenses? Yes.
So there is a very, clear might be a big word, but there is a defined framework. This defined framework is stating that you can have a B2C license for land-based or online, and you can have a B2B license, which will be sort of the same license for land-based and online. Now, the B2B is a supplier license ultimately here, but in our language, in the gambling language, we call it B2B, and this license is becoming very, very popular with all software providers in Europe. Everyone has shown interest, or at least many operators have shown interest, and I sincerely believe that the UAE could attract a lot of software providers here for two main reasons. You have, first of all, it's a very good place to employ people. It's very easy to bring people over from different parts of the world. And secondly, software licensing is one of the very few activities that are not taxed in the UAE. So there is an exemption specifically on software licensing. Again, I'm not going into the legal jargon, but the actual the actual exemption is more specific.
Sure.
But at the same time, in a nutshell, it is about software licensing, and ultimately, find me another jurisdiction with the reputation of the UAE, with the banking system of the UAE, that has a similar framework that allows operators to obtain a B2B license and pay 0% tax on software licensing. So this could be a game changer in the gaming industry, particularly for this region and for the Asian region, I would say, but also beyond that.
Okay, interesting stuff. So obviously this is a mark in history, right? Gambling is obviously soon to be a land-based, soon to be open to the public in a Muslim country. I mean, obviously you've got Macau, you've got Vegas in the middle, Ras Al Khaimah. How do you see local Emiratis accepting gambling?
Well, let's start from the fact that it's not going to be just Ras Al Khaimah. So every emirate will have the opportunity to partner with one operator. Not all emirates will probably participate in this. So some emirates will decide not to because it's ultimately their option. And once they find their preferred operator, then the operator can go and apply for a license with the GCGRA. So I see that potentially there could be 5 or 6 land-based casinos here.
Wow.
Depending on which Emirates will take up this option. Definitely we know that 1 or 2 will not.
Such as Sharjah.
Probably Sharjah will not, of course. But at the end of the day, it's still a possibility, and there will still be a lot of there's still already a lot of activity going on in terms of negotiations with these Emirates and so on. Ultimately, the license will have to be granted by the GCGRA. So from a technical perspective, you need to satisfy the GCGRA requirements. But also, interestingly, and very few people are mentioning this, every Emirate has the opportunity to partner also with an online gaming operator.
Okay.
When I say partner, maybe I'm using the wrong terminology. So the right terminology would be sponsor. So they would need to reach a deal with their preferred operator, and they will sponsor the application that will be submitted to the GCGRA. And by doing that, then you'll have one land-based, one online, and technically this could happen within the next year or 2.
Wow.
So possibly even before Win starts operating, there might be some online gaming licenses that will be operational before. We don't know that for sure, but it's a possibility. You'd asked me about Emiratis. Emiratis, I believe, have always shown a very, very practical sense of things. And I believe that they are seeing the opportunity, and most of them are either completely neutral about it or actually excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that some of them are maybe not so fond of this industry, also because of the cultural.
Well, obviously, it's classed as
restraints.
very haram, right?
So at the end of the day, I don't believe there will be any major issues. And I believe also the way the licensing will be structured, the framework will be structured when you go into the details that will be published in regulations. They will make sure that things will be done in a proper way, like everything else here in the UAE.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, agreed. Okay, so there are obviously, so as you explained, there are licenses available, B2B and B2C, for gaming companies. As you said, the lottery has already been granted a license. Lotteries are fully functioning now already in the UAE. You're heavily involved in the fintech and blockchain side of things. What's your thoughts on cryptocurrency?
So, I started getting interested about crypto early in 2016. So I'm not one of those early Bitcoiners that remember the pizza being sold for a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But, well, for quite a few.
Bitcoins, yeah, crazy.
I found a tweet that I tweeted in 2013 about Bitcoin, but I wasn't following much at the time. 2016, I was very interested in the Ethereum project, and that's where my love for crypto came about. And as soon as I started getting interested, I noticed that there was also an opportunity for lawyers to get into this business. At the time, very few lawyers were interested in doing anything in crypto, and I remember between 2016 and 2018, we had a lot of clients coming over, and Malta was also positioning itself as a very good hub for crypto operators, crypto service providers in particular. And I managed to, with the help of my partners, of course, to build a very interesting practice that today is quite well renowned in Europe, particularly.
Yeah.
And obviously, our aim is also to replicate the same in the UAE.
Amazing, amazing. So obviously, WH Partners, that you are expanding out, you are growing to different regions. There's been a lot of change in the market, especially in crypto. Okay, so we've seen a big change from such as 2018. You had the ICO market, then the ICO crash, then we sort of had these NFTs. Now it's sort of such as meme coins happening. I mean, as a lawyer, obviously you're all about regulation, and obviously, where do you see the market going? There are obviously regulatory bodies in place, but it is also still very unregulated.
Well, look, it is unregulated outside of Europe, for example, and not all outside of Europe. Let's remember that one of the first jurisdictions to actually regulate crypto service providers in particular, because you can't really regulate crypto, was Abu Dhabi. So Malta and Abu Dhabi were two of the first reputable jurisdictions that actually regulated crypto asset service providers. You had the ADGM that was already licensing operators by, I think, 2019. And Malta that started licensing them as well around about that time. So the framework was in 2018 of both.
Yeah.
Very similar frameworks, I would say. The Maltese one was a bit tougher and a bit more maybe overboard at that time. But the Maltese one proved to be the correct one in Europe for the simple reason that when you look at MiCA, which is the new regulatory framework that is a pan-national framework all over the EU, all over the EA, I would say, that the Maltese framework was almost identical. So what happened is that the operators that got a license in Malta started transitioning seamlessly to MiCA. In fact, Malta has the largest number of MiCA licensed operators in Q1 of this, or maybe by half this year.
Yeah.
No, I would say Q1, they had the largest number of MiCA licensed entities simply because they had a framework that was identical, and the European Commission gave Malta the possibility of utilizing what is called I lost the word right now, but it is the summary proceeding sort of. So they could use a faster process to process license applications, because these operators were already in line with MiCA, because our framework was in line with MiCA. Come to Dubai and the UAE, and you'll see ADGM that is still going strong. A lot of big operators have moved to the ADGM. But you also have VARA, which is the local license. Yeah. ADGM is more of an offshore license that allows you to operate outside of the UAE.
Have you advised many clients to use VARA license?
Well, look, the distinction is simple. If your interest is to operate outside of the UAE, with that license, you have to choose either VARA, ADGM, or the IFC. If your interest is to go for the UAE market, then you have one choice: go for VARA. If you're just interested in offering offshore, the three of them work, but I would probably advise more on the IFC and the ADGM.
Yeah. Why?
Because one of the main advantages of those free zones in particular is that they have their own courts. They have their own law, which is based on common law. And when you are an international business and you have those advantages, they are not little advantages, they are major advantages. So having the possibility of being in a jurisdiction that has its own law, that is very practical, that is very clear in everything they do. If you look at the IFC, it's a state-of-the-art jurisdiction has everything top-notch, super efficient.
An entity there is what, $200,000?
Yeah, but then obviously the costs are also relevant. It really depends on your size and what you're looking for. Yeah, same with ADGM.
Yeah.
But we're talking of a top-notch jurisdiction. And if you have difficulties, you have a court. If they have a dispute, you have a court that is super efficient. You don't need to wait in line like in other countries where you have to wait for
delays on
the court case to be heard for months and months on end.
Yeah.
You have a perfect system. So my suggestion, not just in fintech or in anything, is when you want to offer your services in the UAE, you have to go mainland, or if it's in crypto, you have to go to VARA to get a license, because VARA is not really mainland. You still need to have a company. You can still have a company in a free zone. But when you want to offer your services in outside of the UAE, you can go to these free zones that are super efficient. One small thing, nowadays, in certain circumstances, a free zone company can also offer certain services on mainland, which is a big change that happened a few months ago. A new law was introduced. I wrote an article about it, in fact. And ultimately, this is going to make the free zones even more interesting, I would say now. Because you're dealing with something that gives you more clarity, more peace of mind. It's indescribable how much of an advantage you get when you are in one of these reputable big free zones like the IFC and the ADG.
Sure. Absolutely. 0x processing are focused mainly on two things: acceptance rate and security, achieving an unprecedented level by combining proprietary blockchain infrastructure with broad account security measures. 0x processing, crypto payments for your business. Listen, it is very obviously changing times, especially the UAE obviously coming in, new regulations coming in as well. Let's look at sort of the factors of your past experience, right? Especially in gaming, crypto as well. You're doing a lot of networking globally, different conferences, different networking events. What's your thoughts on networking?
So I believe networking is one of the most important marketing techniques that can be used. Most business comes from people you know. And during COVID, there was an attempt to shift networking to digital. And while I am the biggest supporter of digitizing everything, in fact, I am one of the most crazy paperless people that you will ever meet. If I see a paper on my desk, I get angry. That kind of thing. So I don't use papers. I don't print stuff to read. I read directly from my laptop. I can do it very easily, actually more efficiently than reading on paper. I know that many other professionals still find it difficult, but for me, actually, it's difficult to read from a paper nowadays. But I think networking is the one thing that we didn't manage to do. Maybe augmented reality or virtual reality even more could have helped, but the take-up on those technologies is still very weak. So we didn't really experience it during COVID. But COVID taught us that people need to meet physically. Other people. And networking is about that, right? Technology can help that. So, for example, recently I've been to the Paris Blockchain Week. They had this amazing networking app that allowed you to set up meetings. It gave you also the meeting point, like a table with the number, and you go there and you have your meeting in peace. Like, it was very good, and I believe Money 2020 have something similar as well. And these the technology can facilitate networking, but ultimately networking has to happen face to face. We've been together to the Dubai Tech Tuesdays last week and yesterday, and the meeting with people, you meet people that you wouldn't plan to talk 100%. To otherwise, And then you end up sitting down, having a drink with them, and you realize that there are synergies and that you can do some business together. So networking is fantastic. The problem with networking is that nowadays conferences are becoming bigger and bigger. And as they grow, I am seeing their value going down. Because ultimately you need to network with people that are like-minded and people that have the same goals.
And I think over a period of time as well. You can't just see somebody on once, right? You need to see them 2-3 times over that sort of weekend of conference. And like you say, with the big conferences, it's very hard to do that.
I believe that it's time to change the concept of these big conferences or create So if you want to keep the big exhibitions and conferences, that's fine, because they are obviously the ones that make money for the conference organizers, and ultimately everyone is doing a business, so everyone needs to earn money. But I would always create a sort of small, very focused conference, seminar, call it whatever, even just a networking thing. Sigma tried to do something, for example, like that. That started to do the sort of meetups, like at a restaurant.
The more the eye-gathering kind of things.
Eye-gathering and so on. So, but they need to be a bit more, that is more about entertainment, which is also good because most of the business happens over a drink or over a dinner or a lunch.
Of course.
So let's face it. But I think if we start creating more shorter conferences where we invite only C-level, but real C-level, because nowadays everyone is
and qualified
C-level,
people.
So at the end of the day, if you create that kind of environment, and you need to cut them out from the rest of the world.
Correct.
And to cut them out from the rest of the world, you need to do it. First of all, you have to make it short, because a real executive will not be away from his job for 3 days.
No, agreed.
Forget
agreed.
it. Like a real executive maybe can afford a day, but not more than that. But during that day, you need to make sure that you keep them occupied. And you keep them occupied not just by listening to panels. Panels are important, but there has to be other things.
Agreed.
And you need to have mental coaches, for example, because this is what when an executive is leaving his workspace or her workspace, they need to gain some value out of it, because otherwise it's a waste of time.
For sure.
And I believe that having these concepts of having a mental coach that will give them a session of how they can become more efficient, how they can change their mindset, become more positive, that is interesting. At the same time, during the same conference, you have the usual panels, but they will be very high quality, inviting regulators, inviting top marketing experts and stuff like that from whom they can get value, rather than listening to each other debating the usual stuff. And then having very, very interesting networking events that are not just about drinking and eating.
Yeah.
You can have some drinking and eating, of course. You definitely have to have it. But you need to have the networking that is a bit more active.
More engaged as well.
And engaged. Yeah. So having team building, having activities, I know it's a lot more work for the organizers, and the margins will be lower in terms of profits. But I think this would add a lot of value for executives, and in time, executives will still go for these conferences, but they will quit going to the big ones.
Yeah, I agree. How do you prioritize? Because there's so many conferences, right? There's so many different events companies now. How do you prioritize on going to the right ones that gets you the best ROI?
In my case, I have become a bit of a snob nowadays, I would say, and I will only go if I'm invited as a speaker, and I don't even accept all the speaking engagements. So if I'm not invited as a speaker, I usually don't attend unless it's something really, really outstanding. But again, it doesn't mean that whenever I'm invited as a speaker and I go for a conference, it means that it is useful. So even there, my plan is to continue reducing. So this year I had crazy year of traveling. I went to a lot of conferences.
Yeah.
But next year, my plan is to reduce even further. And again, you have to experience them first to know this is good, this is not so good. Or this I can send one of my employees, one of my team members, to actually go and see how they can. Because this is also another thing. We have this tendency that we have been in the industry for a very long time, whether it's fintech, whether it's gambling. I had the fortune of being in both for a long time. But we need to let go. We don't have the energy at my age that I had when I was 30.
Correct.
So what we need to do is train our younger colleagues to be able to do it in our stead. So, for example, I'll give you an example. In Paris, I took one of my young colleagues who's very, very promising. And I think we managed to do triple the networking that I would have done on my own.
Very good.
And it's not just because we're two people instead of one, but it's because the energy of that younger person is much bigger than mine.
Of course, yeah.
So she was going to every stand and talking to everyone and stopping people and talking to them. And from these meetings, we managed to actually add value.
But also remember, you've been around the industries for so long, you will immediately prejudge.
As well.
Right? These young, the new up-and-comers coming through to the business, they don't really know, but they'll just talk to everyone, and eventually it becomes a numbers game. The more people you talk to, the more business you're going to pull through. And they're enthusiastic, they're energetic.
Very true.
Right? They've not listened to the same thing for years and years. So
and that's why I believe that if you want the top executives will soon realize that these exhibitions are a waste of time for them. So they need to train their young people to go for those, and they can do a good job there.
Yeah.
But the real big executives will not go and waste their time in a big exhibition.
I don't think the big exhibitions,
You need to create these specific events that add value to them.
Correct. The more smaller engaged are more beneficial, I've found. Because you see people over a course of period of time, you can engage with them more, because, business is about relationships, right? Relationships over time, and then obviously, eventually, transactions will start. So, yeah, I completely agree with you. It's but obviously there are so many conferences now. They are getting bigger, and we've both been around the same circuit. I know you was one of the first speakers ever at Sigma.
I was actually the first speaker, whatever Eman says.
Okay.
I was the first speaker at Sigma because I've been knowing Eman for a very long time. I knew him at university. We were friends at university. We were both involved in student organizations.
Yeah.
And I remember when he came up with this idea, probably he spoke to the government first. But then when one of the first people, if not the first, he came to speak to was me, and he told me, Joe, would you help me? I told him, of course, with pleasure. We need something like this. Because at the time we had a very small conference in Malta. And I used to always say, why? We are the hub of gaming and we don't have a proper conference here. And we have the amazing climate, we have a beautiful country, and we don't do a conference here? We're nuts. And obviously, Eman took the opportunity and changed a conference of 200 people at the time that was happening into
30,000 now.
The biggest conferences, exhibitions in the world. So yes, I'm very happy to see Sigma grow. I call it a bit my baby, even though I had no role in it except basically supporting Eman and pledging my position as speaker. But I remember at the time there was this other conference, and they had told me, if you speak at Eman's conference, you're not speaking in ours. And I was already a conference speaker in theirs. And many people that were faced with this situation decided to stick with the old, with the traditional one, sort of, that was happening for a few years. I told them, look, I'm already on your speaker list and I'm already on your agenda, so I'm speaking yours, but rest assured that I'm speaking in Aman's as well.
Yeah.
And they had to have a committee meeting, and finally they decided to allow me for this year.
Yeah.
And they told me from next year, you have to choose.
You have to choose.
And I told them, look, guys, if you tell me that, I'm telling you from now, I'm choosing Aman.
Yeah. It is incredible what Sigma have done and what he has built. It's an empire now and globally, which obviously I'm a very big part.
It has a very good team.
Very good team.
So
Very, very good team.
I've worked very closely also on a number of things with a lot of his team members. And the passion they put, the grit there is amazing. Competent people, and
it's a very good team. It's a very good team.
It's a very good team.
Right, listen, Joe, it's been great having you on the show. I've got one more quick question I want to ask you.
Tell me.
Where do you see the price of BTC in the next 5 years?
I'm not giving financial advice, of course. And my hope is very different from my thinking. So I believe that this industry works in cycles. It's like the stock market. We know that there will be times when it will go up, times when it will go down. I believe that we are still waiting for the real bull market, but not of Bitcoin, of the alts. At least we hope that there will be an alt market, what we call an alt market. So if that happens, I believe that Bitcoin will touch at least 150K, at least. I'm being conservative. And the altcoins hopefully will do even better.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have an altcoin market yet, a bull market. Then it will crash again, as usual, as it has always happened, and we will see Bitcoin going down to 80, 60, 40, whatever. I don't know, because as I said, I am not qualified to give this advice or give my views. But then another cycle will come, and maybe Bitcoin will reach 500,000.
Yeah.
So it's a cycle. But the important thing is that if you're trading, you have to be focused.
Yeah.
If you're holding, you just have to hold.
Yeah.
And wait until you are at a comfortable price and say, look, okay, this is the time to sell. I'm happy with what I made and I'm selling. Should I ever sell? I don't know what to tell you, to be honest. While I believe that crypto is very innovative and very good for society, I would say. I think it put a lot of pressure also on governments, because they realize they finally have competition, which is very important. Competition is very healthy. But I also believe that in a few years' time, there might be something new that will be even more interesting than crypto. And at the end of the day, holding forever might not be also the correct way of doing things.
Sure.
So, again, do your own research.
Is crypto gambling?
It depends how you look at it. If you are just holding and investing, it is not gambling. As I said, it is ultimately something that lives in cycles, just like any stock market, and it's not gambling. If you are day trading and actually you are a professional day trader who knows what he or she is doing, you're not gambling. If you are doing day trading and you don't know what the hell you're doing, then I'm sorry, but yes, it is pure gambling. It is the purest of gambling. It's actually worst. Sorry, let me qualify. It is actually more risky than gambling. And I tell you why. Because gambling, you always know the rules.
Yeah.
The house will always win in the end, but there are parameters. With crypto, especially with these meme coins that I hate, to be honest. And I hate them for one simple reason. I hate them because they damage the reputation of crypto.
Agreed.
Just like NFTs as we know them have damaged NFTs. And NFTs are the best technology in crypto. The things you can do with an NFT are incredible. But because everyone is thinking of these pictures, let's call them that way, on these NFTs. That has damaged a lot NFTs, and today when you speak to people about NFTs, they tell, oh, that was something that is of the past. No, sorry, the technology behind NFTs is amazing, and we can use it for so many things. So NFTs are amazing in themselves. I love NFTs. But just putting a picture of something, don't take me wrong, there were some artistic solutions, and we've seen, I have a friend of mine, and I'll do a shout out if you allow me here, Zach Ritchie, who actually did an NFT of me and one of my colleagues at WH Partners, and we called it the Borkina. The guy was creating art. He was designing something. That could be a picture. It could be, but most of the NFTs were just throwing any picture, probably generated by AI, and selling it for thousands, if not millions, and had no worth. While something that had a real artistic value, on the other hand, I don't call that as damaging NFTs. Maybe they didn't succeed, but it wasn't something that damaged NFTs. What damaged NFTs is like what we've seen with meme coins, like these meme coins that had no sense whatsoever, and they were pumped and then dumped. And that is why regulation is important.
For sure.
I always, and I'll end with this, I always call regulation a necessary evil. And coming from a former regulator is not a nice thing to say, but it is, because ideally in the world, we shouldn't have regulation. People should know their boundaries, their limits, and ideally self-regulation would be something nice. But self-regulation, time and time again, has not worked. It has worked very, very small cases and scenarios, but in general, it has not worked. And I believe that with regulation, we have the possibility of limiting the abuse. And that's why I say it's a necessary evil. It is an evil because it limits innovation, it limits growth. So unfortunately, it's negative. But at the same time, it's also necessary. But again, the word necessary, I qualify it as well in saying that regulation should be there only when necessary and for what is necessary. So when we have over-regulation, it is as damaging, if not more, than having no regulation whatsoever. So over-regulation is as big of a problem as no regulation. So finding the right balance, which is not easy, of course, but finding the right balance is the trick to make the regulation successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree. Joe, it's been great having you on the show. Some very informative, some great information on the regulatory bodies, especially for the UAE. A lot I've learned, a lot of our viewers will learn. Check out WH Partners, Mr. Joseph Borge yourself. Thank you for coming by. Absolute pleasure. And all the best for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. Thank you.
And thank you for inviting me.
Cheers. Thank you.